Good morning. Everybody hear me okay? I'd like to welcome everyone here today to celebrate Stephen Kohl. To everyone here, he was known simply as Steve, Uncle, Gunka, Mr. Kohl, Grandpa, husband and soulmate, and Dad. I'm his son, Michael. Dad loved to have a microphone in his hand. His personality was such that he emceed many events. And beyond that, he would be one of the first people to come up to the microphone, sing a song, and get up on stage. Today, I think you'd have a smile on his face seeing us try to fill those shoes facilitating this ceremony. We're also live streaming and recording this service for those who can't make it. And the fact that this is being live streamed online would absolutely blow my dad's mind. It's difficult to find the right words in these moments to talk about the person that he was, and not only what he meant to me and the family, but to everyone who he met along his path in life. He had an ability to make friends out of strangers, and to make everyone, no matter their age, sex, color, nationality, or beliefs, feel welcomed as a friend and gave them part of his heart. He touched so many people in truly meaningful ways, and so many people have reached out to share their stories. There are many shared and common words and stories and phrases that reflect the person that Dad was. Some of the recurring ones that I heard included Dad as a kind soul, generous, hardworking, positive, and upbeat. Such a great guy. He was like a second father for me. He brightened a room when he walked into it. He always said, "I love you." His lovingly loud presence. And perhaps the most recurring, we will miss his big smiles, his big laughs, and his big hugs. It's hard for me to think of one moment or one experience to share about Dad other than a continuous stream of loving moments. Growing up, Dad was a big part of our life and activities. Even while working long hours and often away, he always made time and incredible efforts to be with us. I spent many summers on the road with him as a kid. He took first aid courses just so he could volunteer as a trainer for our hockey team and drive the team bus. He would let us host house parties and cabin parties that I can't ever imagine doing for my kids. He volunteered at every school dance, and something I didn't appreciate much at the time. Looking back now, and as a father myself, he knew that those moments and experiences were irreplaceable memories. He made the time he had. Quality time, memorable moments balancing against working very hard. He was present and always actively engaged, watching with loving eyes and a big smile. He invited 2 children into his life and gave them all of his love. And as you know, all of Dad's love is a whole lot of love. This last week, on hearing of Dad's passing, an acquaintance of mine asked if I was close to him. And it dawned on me what a special relationship I had with him to say that we were always close. I think it was difficult not to be. Not just for me, but for everyone he met. He was like a big puppy dog, full of smiles, energy, and absolute unconditional love no matter the situation. And although Dad has passed, I know that I'm blessed and lucky to have had him in my life for the time that I did, and for that I am eternally grateful. It's so good to see all of you here today to come to celebrate Dad. Although this loss is incredibly difficult, I think he's watching us all come together here to tell stories with big smiles, big laughs, as he would have loved to be here to do. As the quote in the program says, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." So although we grieve with a great sense of loss, we should also celebrate the person that he was and how lucky we were to experience our lives with him in it. The program for today is a celebration of Dad's life. It includes a eulogy, followed by a slideshow. And after that, I'd like to invite anyone here to come up and share stories or anything that they'd like to say about Dad. At this time, I'd like to call up my sister Cyndie to give the eulogy.
Thank you all for being here with us today. I'm Cyndie, Steve's daughter, and I'm honored to speak on behalf of my dad. Dad was born January 27th, 1947 in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, and was the eldest child of Art and Helen Kohl. He has two brothers, Danis and Robert, and three sisters, Elsie, Terry, and Rita, who are all here today. Dad was always active growing up and had a few passions, from hockey to track and field to later racing cars. From a young age, he loved to drive around town with his dad as early as 12 years old, spending pretty much his whole life as a truck driver. He started working as a shipper-receiver, then moved on to a delivery truck driver for McDonald's Consolidated in Shaunavon, and then transferred to Regina, where he worked in the warehouse. This is where he met the love of his life, Liz, or as he liked to call her, Lizzie. He pursued her until she finally agreed to go out with him. Mom's family lived in the Edmonton area, and the two of them decided this is where they were going to move to. After a couple of years, they decided to get married on June 6, 1970. A few years later, they bought the Goodrich General Store from my mom's brother, Ray Pratch. This is where they were when they adopted their first child, Michael, who was born October 2nd, 1975, and then I was adopted a year later, October 4th, 1976. They spent 4 years in Goodrich, and Mom's brother, my Uncle Bert Pratch, built a house in St. Paul, which Michael and I can remember was called the Talbot House, at 4105 48th Avenue. And that is when Dad went to work for Uncle Bert, his brother-in-law, driving truck. Truck driving was Dad's true calling, and I can recall as a kid, he always would tell Mom that he would only be a truck driver for the rest of his life. Mom and Dad always wanted to live on a farm. So when I was in grade 5, we moved to the farm, which is where I learned a whole lot of new life lessons, from pigs to horses to cats and dogs, gardens, teaching me how to drive, but it was another place that we could have family gatherings, and we were closer to Mom's family. When I entered high school, this is when Mom and Dad built the Blue House, and back to town we went. After Mike and I graduated and left home, they then moved to High River in 2004 to 2007, where my Uncle Leo and Auntie Kathy lived. In 2007, they decided to move back home, build their dream home, and also Dad finally got to build his dream garage. As most people know, Dad could build pretty much anything. The property they built on was his father-in-law's homestead, and this has been their home for the past 15 years. Funny story, this property was also where the cook shack used to be, and was a very famous place for us teenagers to party at. Mom and Dad hosted many family gatherings and campouts here, and these were some of his favorite times. This is also where Dad got to enjoy his grandkids, Oliver, Amelia, Sheena, Raven, and Madison. And they're all here today. He got to take them on quad rides, golf cart rides, teach them how to shoot bows and arrows. And this is where they got to teach Grandpa all about, hey Alexa, and iPhones. Talk to text was a big one for Dad, as we all know he loved to talk to people, whether in person or on the phone. He loved being a grandpa and was always a steady stream of love and cared so much for them. Dad loved being a grandpa. He truly was the most loving person. Dad has adopted so many people he has met over the years, and they would all call him Dad or Uncle or Papa. I actually do not know how many additional siblings and cousins I truly have. He loved large, and he was loud in the best way. And he is known for giving the best bear hugs. I can remember dreading grocery shopping with Dad, I can remember dreading going grocery shopping with Dad, as I knew if the list had 7 items, it would be a 2-hour adventure, as he would take me up and down every aisle and talk to every single person, it seemed. But those were some of the funnest trips I had with my dad. He taught me about kindness, talking to strangers, and respect. He treated everyone the same and always had that big smile and natural charm. Every family wedding, you could be sure Dad was always so excited to be asked to be the MC. He was a natural at public speaking. Dad tried to retire a year ago. We had a party and everything for him, but I knew deep down he was going to return to work, as that is all he knew, hard work. He always said, work hard and play hard. When he told me he was returning to work, I knew that is something that made him happy. He had taken the summer off and returned to work in the fall, and finally retired on April 29th, 2022. Then he finally got to start on his never-ending to-do list. I remember that last week of work, he called me every day, and he would be on his lunch break and would say, I just wanted to see how my daughter was doing today. And he pulled over and had lunch on the side of the road. Me and Dad talked pretty much every other day, and if 3 days passed, he would get worried about me. Dad had a number of loves in life. Trucks, from his 1957 Buick to his 1966 Mercury to his green 1976 Ford truck to his current Ford truck. He always wanted to go to Zeroni Motors because he would walk in and start talking to them as friends. But he also loved his big trucks. Some of his greatest joys were driving all over the countryside in his big rig, whether with Uncle Bert or Jim McMillan. And in his later days, he had a lot of joy driving snowplows for Danis. And in Dad's words, watching the snow fly off that blade. Dad loved a good party. I remember some wild parties as a kid, whether it was in their basement at the Talbot house, a neighbor's, or one of the relatives. Beyond the small parties, Dad was passionate about bringing people together, and he loved his family reunions, whether Kohl, Hack, Kaplan Patch, or Betchers. He was always up to having a great time. As he got older, age didn't slow him down, and every summer he wanted to host a party at the house and invited everyone over, filling the yard with holiday trailers. Which brings me to friends. Dad was a social extrovert. He waved and said hi to strangers, brightening their day. He loved to visit, make impromptu visits. He loved to have coffee with the boys at work, and he would go in to do so even on his days off. He loved his community. He was actively involved in many organizations, volunteering and giving back. From block parents, minor hockey, and St. Paul Junior B Canadians to Real Crime Watch. Dad loved his kids. He loved his grandchildren, and he found his soulmate in Mom, having been married for 52 years. Dad was my rock. Dad was my hero. He was always there for me and always listened when I needed him, which was a lot, and he chatted my ear off too. He gave me advice that I will always cherish and hugs that were never ending. He was proud of me. He always told me, and I'm grateful for every moment I got to spend with him, from watching the Oiler games together to family reunions to working in the garage with him and watching him with his grandkids. Dad, you are an impossible man to try to summarize in a eulogy. You represent the best of us and made us all happier and enriched our lives. Thank you for everything. I love you, and I remember you always. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyndie. We now have a slideshow to show. Are we good for the slideshow? Yeah. Just as we wait for the screen to come down, maybe a few comments before we start. Specifically targeted towards the younger generation. Apologies for some of the quality of these pictures. They're largely photos of photos. Prior to taken in the olden days, before high-quality digital capabilities on our iPhones. I must warn all of you right now, there's some ridiculous fashions and hairstyles in these photos by many of those here today, so please enjoy.
always thought you were the best. I guess I always will. I always felt that we were blessed, and I feel that way still. Sometimes we took the hard road, but we always saw it through. If I had only one friend left, I'd want it to be you. Sometimes the world was on our side, sometimes it wasn't fair. Sometimes it gave a helping hand, sometimes we didn't care. 'Cause when we were together, it made the dream come true. If I had only one friend left, I'd want it to be you. Someone who understands me and knows me inside out, helps keep me together and believes without a doubt. If I could move a mountain, someone to tell it to. If I had only one friend left, I'd want it to be.
May the good Lord be with you down every
went through thousands of photos to try to pick him, and it's impossible to find pictures of Dad not smiling. Also tricky to find pictures of him with his shirts on, but... At this time, the floor is open to invite any of you who would like to come up and share a story, a moment, an experience, an impact that he had, whatever you'd like to share in honor of Dad. We do have a video that has been submitted by a cousin of mine, Ray Giguère, to kick this off, and so we'll play that on the screen here, and then I'll open it back up to anyone.
Hello, my name is Raymond Giguère. For those of you who are friends of Steve's, how I fit in is my mother Mary is Auntie Liz's sister. So basically, Auntie Liz and Uncle Steve have been in my life since before I was born. I remember at first, I've got a ton of stories that I can tell you and wonderful memories, but we just don't have enough time today. When I was younger, we would always go up to Goodridge and go to the family reunions, and I'd hang out with the kids and go play in the field and play games inside the hall. And but one of the first memories was hearing Uncle Steve laugh. You could hear him at the other end of the hall. You could hear him the other end of the parking lot. You could hear him the other end of the baseball field behind the Goodridge Hall. It was a wonderful, wonderful laugh, and it's always stuck with me my whole life. One of the first stories that I was in trouble with Uncle Steve, but had a cool ending, was I was at Uncle Bert and Auntie Ellen's house, and I was about 13 years old. It was in winter time, and Uncle Bert said that I could use his Panthera Arctic Cat snowmobile, and so my brother and I went down to the Quonset and went to dig it out, and Uncle Steve's big semi truck was in the Quonset, and it had to be moved to get the snowmobile out. So my brother and I figured out how to fire this thing up and move it. My brother moved it, and I got the snowmobile out, and off we went and had a great time. And the next day, Uncle Steve confronted my brother and I, and was a little bit mad at us because the air brakes were left on the truck, and we actually skidded the tires to move the semi. So at the end of this story is that Uncle Steve took us down and showed us his semi, took us for a ride. He showed us all of the features of the semi, how to turn the air brakes on, off, how the gears worked, how the 100 switches, or what the 100 switches did, and the whole bit. So he was that kind of uncle that he would take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing as a learning experience. I loved vehicles, I loved driving, I loved anything mechanical and stuff like that. So when I turned 14, 15 and around there, I was heading up to St. Paul to go visit some of the cousins, but my parents weren't heading up there, but Auntie Liz and Uncle Steve were. So I got to go up in their truck, and they let me drive it. It was this big, dark green Ford extended cab truck with a green canopy, and I think it had like a gold racing stripe down the side, but it was pretty intimidating for a 14-year-old at the time. And so I was driving, and we had gone onto a 2-lane highway, and there was a bunch of vehicles in front of us, and I had to pass, and Auntie Liz and Uncle Steve just said, "Get moving, get it done, put it to the metal and let it happen." And I think so. I think "get her done" statement came out a few decades ago from Auntie Liz and Uncle Steve. Over the years, Uncle Steve was an MC at several different occasions, and he could always have the crowd in the palm of his hands. He can make them sigh, he can make them laugh. And I looked up to Uncle Steve because at that time I was becoming or involving myself out of the dental field and into the medical field. So I had to do a lot of presentations and do public speaking. So unbeknown to Uncle Steve, I actually learned a lot of stuff from him, and really should have thanked him at that time. So I'm thanking him now. So I call him the master because he helped me out big time when it comes to public speaking. So around that same time, Uncle Steve met my fiancée Deb. She came to the Goodrich Hall. She was in a black short dress, and Uncle Steve came up and introduced Uncle Steve to her, and he dropped a loonie. And Deb bent over and picked it up, and Uncle Steve was checking out things, and Deb figured out what the heck was going on, and she smacked him in the shoulder, and he did the Uncle Steve laugh. And for the next 29 years, Deb could never straighten out Uncle Steve. That was just his uncanny, humorous personality that he always had everybody in stitches. It was awesome. So after that, my cousin Travis and Stephanie Pratcher were married, and I was master of ceremonies at their wedding. And Uncle Steve was there, of course, and Auntie Liz and all the family. And it was in St. Paul. It was close to the Flying Saucer landing pad. And Deb and I were just together at the time, and didn't have. We had a truck with a canopy, and that's what we slept in that night. And so the next morning when I woke up, I could see Uncle Steve coming up the gravel road alley from the after party of Travis and Stephanie's wedding. Uncle Steve loved his rum, and he always did until later on in life that the doctor said to cut back on the rum. But to salute Uncle Steve, I always have his favorite bottle of rum in my liquor cabinet. So anytime anybody's by and would like to toast one to Uncle Steve, my cabinet's always open for you. The reunions had slowed down over the years, especially with the COVID, and fortunately we were able to have a couple of mini family reunions up at Uncle Steve and Auntie Liz's acreage, which turned out just wonderful and fantastic. I hosted another reunion after that at Hanmore Lake, and all the people that showed up there had a fantastic time, and it was wonderful. Uncle Steve had showed me his trailer and all the modifications that he had done to it, including putting a generator on the back and a wood bin and several other different things that he was just so proud to show me. Uncle Steve is a legend, and he has been my mentor on several occasions, and I will always be grateful to what he has taught me. He is now with several other legends, Uncle Bert, Auntie Ellen, Uncle Joe, Auntie Marianne, Uncle Peter, Auntie B, Uncle Ray, amongst others. I know I'm missing a few. But he is amongst the legendary people that have made this family so wonderful. I will love you, Uncle Steve, forever and ever. You will always be in my heart. I missed saying how supportive and how wonderful the rest of the family has been, especially my cousin Cyndie and Michael, and I wish you and your families and the grandchildren all the best, and know that you have had the privilege of having such a wonderful, legendary person in your life.
Well, thanks to Ray for submitting that. He couldn't be here, so it was great to get the video. Now we'll bring the screen up, turn the lights on. And again, I'd like to welcome anybody who'd like to come and say anything about Dad. Just please come on up and share your stories.
Stand like this. just read it. Stevie. I have so many memories of you that I will cherish forever. You were more than a brother-in-law to me. You were my second dad. And I have you, Lizzie, to thank for. If it wasn't for you bringing this stray, as Stevie always called me, home, I would have never had the opportunity to meet this incredible, wonderful, loving man. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And to you, Mike and Cyndie, I want to thank you for sharing your dad with me for the past 32 years. Thank you. Whenever Leo and I would go to visit Liz and Stevie, we would pull into town, into St. Paul, and Leo would ask if we needed to stop for anything. I would say, yeah, we better stop at Tim Hortons. So we would. We'd pick up a coffee for Lizzie and a nice cap for Stevie. As we all know how much he loved his ice caps. When we got to their place, Stevie would see us with the ice cap, and he'd have the biggest smile on his face, and of course we thought it was because it was for us. We knew it wasn't. It was for his ice cap. So next time you go to Tim Hortons and have an ice cap, raise that cap in memory of Stevie. And I'm not done yet. Okay, so I forgot to tell Casey this, but I'm stealing a line from Maya. I'm going to steal this line from my granddaughter, Maya. I believe she was 3 or 4, and Casey and her were having a mommy-daughter moment. And Casey said to Maya, "I love you to the moon and back." And Maya replied to her, "Mommy, I love you to Tim Hortons and back." Well, Stevie, I love you to all the Tim Hortons around the world and back. Lastly, we all know tomorrow's Father's Day. So Stevie, happy Father's Day to you. And also to all your dads out there, happy Father's Day to you too. Thank you.
I have a story that was sent to me from Dean and Kathy Anderson, who were friends and former neighbors of Mom and Dad, who couldn't be here today, but they asked me to share. A few words about Steve. We lived a few blocks apart in High River and didn't know each other. In 2014, we moved to from High River to St. Paul, in the middle of nowhere on Vincent Lake. We were there only a few weeks when a gentleman knocked and was standing in my doorway and said, "Hi, I'm your neighbor. From that day on, we became best of friends. Steve impacted our lives like no other man I have met next to my dad. Steve was always there to help us. One day I told him we needed to fall a few trees, and he was right there with his chainsaw in hand. When the tree fell, it landed on top of the hot tub and the glass railing. Cool and calm, Steve said, "Well, I guess that didn't go as planned." We all had a big laugh. One feeling I remember, when Steve gave you his big bear hug and you were gasping for air. The feeling from that hug left an imprint on your heart. After we left St. Paul, our many long distance calls always ended with "I love you." We love you, Steve. You're always with us. Rest in peace, my friend. So at this point, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today, for grieving together. Oh, thank you.
I can't let this story go. There's a lot of stories about Uncle Steve, and I think he was the one that wasn't the shy one. He would be the one up here. So, a few years back, when my parents lived in St. Paul one Christmas, Haley and Austin were probably about, 7, 8 years old, and Uncle Steve decided that he was going to play Santa Claus. And so he brought the gifts and everything else, and Auntie Liz was waiting in the vehicle outside for him. Then all of a sudden she got nervous as he was coming outside the door because she didn't want the kids to see her there and then realize it was Uncle Steve. So here she is, nervous, so she grabs, she's in the vehicle, she starts driving away. Uncle Steve's in his Santa Claus suit and Santa Claus bag, and he's running behind the vehicle. "Steve, wait! Liz, wait! And she's just driving down. And it was the funniest thing to see. And I'm sure everybody on the block was just, wondering, what is going on here? Santa Claus is chasing after Auntie Liz, but, because I think everyone knew Auntie Liz on the block there too. Yeah, so that was one of my favorite memories of him running down there and Auntie Liz driving away. Yeah, but there's so many I know that all of you have as well, but I just wanted to share. And he will be missed, and I loved him greatly. And I love all of you too.
before I prematurely close that session off again. Would anybody else like to come up and say a few words? Chad, no singing?
I don't come to St. Paul very often. Growing up in this family, I was always coming here for events, funerals, weddings, and every so often, or every time, you know, growing up, especially in my early 20s, I would always come with, you know, a new relationship, a new girl. And yeah, Natalie, you're not going to like this story. But every time, Uncle Steve would always make a comment about how I'm reaching, meaning that it's the lady that I'm with is always way better, and how did you get her? How did you do that? But I think the main thing about that is that every time I would come to visit, he'd always embrace me, feel like we had a real connection, because I don't know, he just every time I come to visit, you know, would just always get a big hug, and I feel like we had a special connection. And I'll always cherish Uncle Steve as my uncle. And yeah, that's my story.
Any other stories to share? I'm not very well practiced at this point of the emceeing. All right. Well, maybe I'll thank everyone for coming here today, for grieving together, and for celebrating Dad's life and his continued memories that will live with us. Thank you so much to the people who have reached out and helped us during these difficult times. To his grandchildren, Sheena, Raven, Madison, Oliver, and Amelia, Grandpa loved you tremendously. You provided him laughs and love and made his heart grow. To my sister, Dad is proud. He's a shining star looking on you. He'll continue to be your rock and your guiding light. To my mom, Dad loved you from the day he met you. He'll always be there by your side loving you. You have the support of all of us here to get through this. I promise we'll be there for you and carry Dad's memories alive forever. To all of you who Dad may have touched for a brief period of time or through your whole lives, know that as good as he may have made you feel and filled your heart, you did more than that for him. The love of his family, his friends, and his community truly was everything to him. Thank you for making it amazing for him. Dad's wish was to be cremated, and we'll plan to have a service at some date in the future yet to be determined, so as we know those details, we'll let everybody know. Immediately following this ceremony, there will be lunch provided at the Ukrainian Hall just across the street over here. I'd like to invite everyone there to please come and eat and gather, connect, and share stories with one another. Thank you very much, everyone. We hope to see you at the gathering there or sometime in the near future.
I could see it in the air. Every word was like smoke from a cigarette you were blowing in your hair. The heater broke in the Oldsmobile and the light in your eyes. Alone on the freeway, I was stranded in the bed. You were listening to the dark side of the moon. I could barely see your eyes. Still a sobbing in a hotel room with the light in your eyes. And waves on the ceiling. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. Tonight. You were tired of Tacoma. I was tired of believing we were right, losing every other friend, finding nothing in the afterlife but the light in your eyes. Alone on a feeling. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. Tonight. You're stranded on the bridge. You're crying for your kids. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. 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 I could see it in the air. Every word was like smoke from a cigarette. Sun is coming up ahead. Get your crack in the windshield, shining the light in your eyes. Alone on the freeway. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. Tonight. You're stranded on the bridge. The cops are closing in. I'll be a bright side baby tonight. Tonight. Tonight.